My beloved child, listen carefully. This is not a coincidence, and this is not random. Today, December 24th, it's an emergency. Archangel Michael and Jesus both have been trying to reach you. They are very angry. You ignore them every time they tries to alert you or bless you. This Christmas Eve you will, yes. This exact message was allowed to cross your path because heaven decided you could not be left unaware any longer. Right now, there is a holy urgency in the spiritual realm. Archangel Michael is standing with his sword of truth lowered, not raised in harm, but lowered in warning. Jesus is near, closer than your breath, yet his voice has been echoing unanswered. Not because he stopped speaking, but because you kept postponing listening. This is not condemnation. This is confrontation with love. You have been alerted again and again. Through sudden thoughts. Through repeated signs. Through people, dreams, delays, and unexpected pauses. Each time you told yourself later. Each time you assumed there would be more time. But hear this clearly. This Christmas Eve is marked. Archangel Michael says there was protection assigned to you that required your attention. Jesus says there was a blessing prepared that needed your agreement. Yet every time heaven knocked, you were distracted, tired, busy, or doubtful. And now, the tone has shifted. Not because heaven wants to punish you, but because heaven refuses to lose you. Feel the weight of this moment. December 24th is not just a date on the calendar. It is a spiritual checkpoint, a pause before movement, a divine interruption before decisions solidify. What you choose to do with this message determines how the next season opens. You may not realize this, but something has been circling your life, waiting for permission. Not darkness, not harm, but change. And change always requires your response. Archangel Michael has been guarding doors you were supposed to walk through. Jesus has been holding answers you were supposed to ask for. Heaven is not silent. Heaven is weighty. And yes, there is righteous anger, but not the kind you fear. It is the anger of a parent watching a child ignore urgent warnings. The anger of love seeing potential delayed. The frustration of mercy being postponed. Jesus says, I stood at the door, and I knocked. Archangel Michael says, I stood watch while you hesitated. Do not mistake their nearness for tolerance of delay. This Christmas Eve, something shifts. You will not walk away unchanged. Either you finally align or you continue resisting what was meant to restore you. The choice is yours, but the moment is fixed. Here is a reason old patterns have been feeling heavy lately. A reason certain comforts no longer satisfy. A reason distractions have stopped working. Heaven has been narrowing your focus, stripping away noise, bringing you to this exact point where excuses run out. You may have thought blessings would come quietly, but some blessings arrive as wake-up calls. Archangel Michael is not here to frighten you. He is here to awaken you. Jesus is not here to accuse you. He is here to recover you. Yet both are firm now, because time-sensitive grace requires immediate attention. Hear this. What you do within the next spiritual window determines what follows you into the new season. This is why this message feels intense. This is why you couldn't scroll past. This is why your spirit feels stirred even if your mind resists. You were meant to pause today, to reflect, to acknowledge, to respond. This Christmas Eve, you will either finally answer or you will feel the absence of what you kept delaying. Heaven does not threaten. It withdraws opportunities when they are continually ignored. But it is not too late. Right now, as you are listening, mercy is still extended. Grace is still open. Archangel Michael still stands guard. Jesus still waits with open hands. But the window is narrowing, not to pressure you, but to focus you. Let this moment sink in. Let the urgency settle without fear. Let awareness rise instead of anxiety. This is not about guilt. This is about alignment. Because once this night passes, the tone changes. The invitation changes. The instructions become firmer. And the question heaven is asking you right now is simple. Will you finally listen, or will you keep delaying what was sent to bless you? Stay with this message. Something is about to be revealed that connects everything you've been feeling, everything you've been avoiding, and everything that's about to unfold. My dear one, now that your spirit has been stirred, you must understand why this urgency feels so heavy. What you sensed in the last moments was not fear, it was recognition. Something deep within you knows this message is true. Archangel Michael reveals that the anger you sensed was never rage toward you, but resistance against what has been resisting your destiny. Jesus is not angry because you failed. He is firm because delay has consequences, and heaven sees what you cannot yet see. There have been repeated attempts to reach you because you are standing at a spiritual intersection. One path leads to restoration, clarity, and divine order. The other path leads to repetition, cycles that look familiar but slowly drain your peace. Every time you ignored the nudge, the sign, the inner conviction, you unknowingly postponed a necessary correction, and heaven allowed you space, hoping you would choose awareness on your own. But now, space has turned into urgency. Archangel Michael says there were moments when danger passed near you but could not touch you because of divine protection. Yet protection is not meant to replace obedience. It is meant to support it. Jesus says you kept asking for peace while holding on to habits that disturb your spirit. You prayed for clarity while avoiding silence. You asked for blessings while resisting instruction. None of this makes you unworthy, but it does make this moment critical. You may wonder why this message feels personal. It is because it is. Heaven does not broadcast emergencies randomly. When Jesus and Archangel Michael both move at once, it means alignment is required immediately. Something was supposed to happen earlier, but it did not because you were not ready to receive it. And now, the preparation window has narrowed. This Christmas Eve carries spiritual weight because it symbolizes arrival. Light entering darkness. Truth stepping into confusion. And yet, heaven says you were close to missing this arrival entirely. Not because you are bad, but because you became distracted by noise that looked harmless. Comfort that turned into avoidance. Familiar routines that replaced spiritual attentiveness. Archangel Michael shows an image of unopened doors behind you. Doors you assumed were closed forever, but in truth, they were waiting for your response. Jesus says some blessings require participation, not passive waiting. Heaven had been patient, but patience does not mean endless postponement. There is also something else you must hear clearly. Not every warning feels loud. Some come as discomfort. Some come as restlessness. Some come as repeated delays that frustrate you. You interpreted those moments as bad luck or stress, but they were signals. Gentle at first, now louder. This is why the tone has shifted. You are being called back into awareness, back into alignment, back into responsibility for your spiritual posture. Not in shame, but in truth. Jesus corrects those he loves. Archangel Michael guards those who are willing to wake up. And this is important. You are not being asked to be perfect. You are being asked to be present. To stop numbing what you feel. To stop postponing what you already know needs to change. Heaven is not asking for dramatic gestures. It is asking for sincere attention. This is where your choice matters. The moment you acknowledge this message, you re-enter divine alignment. The moment you resist it, the cycle continues. Nothing catastrophic, just delayed fulfillment. Repeated lessons. Opportunities passing quietly by. And listen carefully, this message is not meant to end here. It is meant to move. If this is resonating with you, do not keep it to yourself. When you like this message, when you share it, when you leave a comment, you are not boosting a video. You are agreeing with truth. You are signaling readiness. You are telling heaven, I am listening now. Subscribing and staying connected is not about a channel. It is about staying within a flow where reminders reach you before urgency turns into loss. Archangel Michael says agreement activates protection. Jesus says acknowledgement releases grace. As this message spreads, it reaches others who are also standing at intersections, unaware they are about to repeat cycles they were meant to break. Your simple action can redirect someone else's path. Never underestimate how obedience multiplies. Before this moment passes, pause internally. Ask yourself honestly, where have I been postponing what I already know? Where have I ignored gentle warnings because they felt inconvenient? Where have I been asking for blessings without preparing my heart to receive them? You do not need to answer out loud. Heaven already knows. What matters is that you finally admit it to yourself. Something is unfolding next that explains what specifically is being corrected and why this Christmas Eve marks the turning point. Hold on, because what comes next connects your past delays with the shift that is about to begin. And once you see it, you will understand why this message could not wait. Beloved soul, now the veil begins to lift, and what was hidden behind delay comes into focus. Archangel Michael steps forward with clarity, not accusation. He says the reason this emergency intensified is because something tied to your foundation has been under review. Not your future alone, but the structure beneath it. Jesus reveals that before new joy can rest on your life, what you are standing on must be corrected. This is why the message connects so strongly to your home, your inner environment, your spiritual dwelling place. You have been trying to move forward while carrying unresolved weight. Old agreements you never consciously made. Emotional habits formed during survival seasons. Patterns that once protected you but now restrict you. Heaven has watched you pray for peace while living in internal noise. Pray for stability while tolerating instability. And this is where divine frustration enters, not against you, but against what has been quietly draining you. Archangel Michael shows an image of a house with one weakened wall. From the outside it looks fine. Inside, however, pressure had been building. Jesus says this is why blessings were delayed, not denied, delayed, because adding more weight without reinforcement would have caused collapse. What you thought was silence was actually mercy. This Christmas Eve marks the moment of exposure, not humiliation. Exposure brings healing when you are willing to see. There is something about your current living situation, physical, emotional, or spiritual, that no longer aligns with where God is taking you. It could be a mindset you call normal, a relationship you keep justifying, a routine that numbs you instead of restoring you. You already know what it is. You have felt the discomfort. You have sensed the misalignment. You ignored the alerts because addressing them required change. And change felt exhausting. But now heaven says remaining the same will cost you more than changing ever would. Jesus speaks gently but firmly. I cannot pour new wine into a structure that refuses repair. This is not rejection. This is preparation. Archangel Michael confirms that once this correction is accepted, protection intensifies instead of merely sustaining. What happens next depends on honesty, not perfection, honesty. You are being invited to stop pretending everything is fine, to stop spiritualizing avoidance, to stop delaying conversations with yourself, with God, with truth. This is the kind of obedience that feels uncomfortable at first but unlocks peace you have been craving. Something else is revealed here. The anger you sensed earlier was also urgency because others are affected by your alignment. Your healing impacts more than you realize. Your obedience shifts environments. Your clarity breaks generational patterns. This is why heaven is pressing now. You are not being rushed into fear. You are being rushed into freedom. And this message settles, allow it to search you without resistance. Ask quietly for discernment. Ask for courage to address what hath been revealed. You are not alone in this. Archangel Michael stands guard during transitions. Jesus walks with you through correction. And now, receive this activation with intention. Type "I receive divine correction" in the comments if this message is speaking directly to your spirit. Lesson code 944 has just been released. This is not just a word for you. It is a flame meant to travel. When you choose to support this mission, you are placing oil on that flame so it can reach souls standing at their own crossroads. The Lord says, as you sow into my work, I repair what you could not fix alone. Your giving becomes seed in fertile ground, releasing light into homes that feel unstable and hearts that feel unheard. I feel led to tell you plainly, this is your moment to respond, not later, not someday. What you release now returns as protection, clarity, and peace pressed down and overflowing. Do not delay obedience when heaven has opened the door. Support through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal. The link is waiting in the description. Step forward and act, because your obedience today strengthens many tomorrow. Chosen one, now that exposure has taken place, heaven begins the work of realignment. Archangel Michael says many people panic when truth is revealed, but you were never meant to panic, you were meant to prepare. Jesus speaks with reassurance now, because awareness has already shifted something inside you. The hardest part was seeing. The next part is strengthening. There is a misunderstanding many carry, that correction means loss. But divine correction always means protection. What is being adjusted in your life right now is not meant to strip you, but to stabilize you. The reason the message felt intense earlier is because delay created pressure. Once pressure is acknowledged, peace can return. Archangel Michael reveals that after December 24th, the spiritual atmosphere around you changes. It does not become magically easy, but it becomes clear. Confusion lifts. Internal arguments quiet down. You begin to see what drains you and what restores you without forcing yourself to analyze everything. This clarity is not accidental. It is the result of obedience beginning to take root. Jesus says you have been blaming yourself for being tired, when in truth, you were carrying things that were never meant to be permanent. Emotional responsibilities that belonged to others. Guilt that did not originate from Him. Expectations placed on you during seasons when you were only trying to survive. Heaven watched you adapt, but now adaptation has expired. It is time for alignment. This part of the journey feels quieter, but it is powerful. After urgency comes instruction. After exposure comes rebuilding. You may notice small shifts first. A desire to clean, simplify, reorganize. A sudden discomfort with conversations that once felt normal. A longing for silence instead of noise. These are not random impulses. They are signs of inner order being restored. Archangel Michael stands at the threshold of this season not as a warrior, but as a guardian. He says protection increases when boundaries are established. You are learning to say no without guilt, to pause without explaining, to choose rest without apologizing. These are spiritual skills, not weaknesses. Jesus adds something important here. He says many of your prayers were already answered, but you could not receive them while holding on to outdated versions of yourself. Blessings require space. Peace requires permission. Joy requires honesty. And now, space is being made. You might still feel moments of resistance. Old habits do not leave quietly. Old patterns try to convince you that change is dangerous. But hear this clearly, what you are leaving behind is familiar, not faithful. Familiarity can feel safe, but it does not always serve your future. This is why heaven allowed intensity before gentleness. You needed to wake up before you could slow down. As this rebuilding begins, do not rush yourself. Divine timing is not hurried, but it is intentional. Small, consistent choices matter more now than dramatic declarations. Integrity in private matters more than public promises. Heaven is watching your alignment, not your performance. There is also healing happening beneath the surface that you may not immediately notice. Emotional wounds you normalized are being touched quietly. Jesus is restoring trust in areas where disappointment made you guarded. Archangel Michael is reinforcing spiritual boundaries that were once fragile. This work is subtle, but it is deep. Do not be surprised if people respond differently to you. When alignment shifts, dynamics adjust. Some will respect the change. Some will resist it. Neither reaction should pull you back into old roles. You are not responsible for managing others' comfort with your growth. This is a season of grounded strength. Not loud, not rushed, rooted. Heaven wants you to understand something vital. You are not behind. You are right on time for the version of you that can sustain what is coming. What felt like delay was actually refinement. What felt like pressure was preparation. As you continue forward, remain attentive. Not anxious, attentive. Listen to inner nudges without overthinking. Respond to peace, not pressure. If something disrupts your spirit, pause and ask why. Heaven is now communicating through clarity rather than urgency. The emergency has passed. The alignment has begun. And what unfolds next will show you why this correction was necessary, not to limit you, but to support the life you are about to step into. Remain open. Remain honest. Remain grounded. What is coming next explains how this realignment affects your relationships and why certain connections are about to shift naturally, without force. My precious one, as alignment settles within you, its effects begin to ripple outward, touching the connections around your life. Archangel Michael reveals that relationships are often the first place where inner change becomes visible. Not because people are the problem, but because alignment exposes imbalance. Jesus speaks with compassion here, because he knows how deeply you care, how much you have tried to hold things together even when it cost you peace. There are relationships you maintained out of loyalty, not life. Conversations you continued out of habit, not harmony. Roles you kept playing because you feared disappointing others. Heaven saw this, and it allowed it for a season, because you were still learning who you were. But now, that season has completed its assignment. This does not mean separation must be dramatic. Divine shifts are often quiet. You may notice that certain interactions no longer drain you because they no longer dominate your attention. You stop explaining yourself excessively. You stop absorbing emotions that are not yours. You stop feeling responsible for fixing what others refuse to address. These changes happen naturally while alignment deepens. Archangel Michael says that when boundaries strengthen, confusion weakens. You are no longer easily pulled into emotional turbulence. You recognize when a conversation is meant to connect and when it is meant to control. This awareness is not judgment, it is discernment. And discernment is a gift that protects your peace. Jesus reminds you that love does not require self-abandonment. He never asked you to carry burdens he did not assign. Many of the relationships that exhausted you were built on imbalance, where giving replaced mutual growth. As alignment continues, those dynamics either adjust or fade. Both outcomes serve your good. You may feel a subtle grief as this happens. Even healthy change can feel like loss. Allow that feeling without interpreting it as failure. You are not losing people, you are losing patterns. You are not abandoning connection, you are refining it. Heaven honors your tenderness even as it strengthens your spine. There is also joy coming through new connections. Not necessarily new faces immediately, but new depth. Existing relationships may soften, becoming safer, more honest. When you stop performing, intimacy becomes possible. When you stop overgiving, balance returns. These shifts feel unfamiliar at first, but they bring relief. Archangel Michael reveals that your energy hath been guarded more carefully now. You may notice less tolerance for gossip, chaos, or emotional manipulation. This is not hardness, it is maturity. Peace has become too valuable to sacrifice for temporary approval. Jesus smiles at this growth because it reflects trust in his guidance. You might wonder if you are becoming distant. You are not. You are becoming centered. Distance creates isolation, but centering creates stability. From stability, you can love without losing yourself. You can listen without absorbing. You can help without rescuing. This is the balance heaven has been guiding you toward. As this transformation continues, resist the urge to over-explain your changes. Alignment does not need defense. Those meant to walk with you will adjust naturally. Those who cannot will reveal that they were connected to your old patterns, not your true self. This realization may sting, but it also frees you. Jesus speaks gently here. Do not rush to label endings as rejection. Some endings are simply transitions completing their purpose. Bless what was, release what no longer fits, and trust what is unfolding. Grace follows acceptance. There is an inner confidence forming now. Not loud, not arrogant, but steady. You begin to trust your instincts again. You stop second-guessing every decision. You recognize when peace confirms a choice and when unease signals pause. This confidence is not self-made, it is alignment-made. Archangel Michael confirms that spiritual protection increases when emotional clarity grows. When you stop inviting chaos, chaos loses access. When you stop tolerating disrespect, respect rises. When you honor your limits, heaven honors your obedience. This season invites patience, not passive waiting but grounded presence. You do not need to force outcomes. Allow adjustments to happen organically. What is built in alignment lasts longer than what is built in urgency. As relationships recalibrate, remember that you are not meant to carry everyone with you into every season. Some walked with you through survival. Others will walk with you into peace. Both are valuable. Neither defines your worth. Stay attentive to your inner state. If something consistently disrupts your peace, ask why. If something consistently restores you, nurture it. Heaven is teaching you through experience now, not crisis. What unfolds next will touch the way you see yourself, because alignment does not stop at relationships. It reshapes identity. And as that happens, you will understand why this emergency led not to fear, but to freedom. My beloved one, now the work turns inward in a deeper way, because alignment is not complete until your self-perception catches up with your spiritual position. Archangel Michael says many people change their environment but still carry old identities within. Jesus speaks directly to this moment because he knows you have struggled not with worth, but with permission to fully become who you were called to be. For a long time, you saw yourself through the lens of past mistakes, past survival roles, and past expectations. You learned to be strong when you needed rest. You learned to stay quiet when you needed to speak. You learned to overfunction so others would not fall apart. These identities were never sins. They were coping mechanisms. But heaven says they are no longer required. This is why alignment feels unfamiliar. You are learning how to exist without constant tension. You are learning how to choose without guilt. You are learning how to rest without fear of consequences. And your nervous system, your emotions, and your thoughts are all adjusting at once. Give yourself grace in this process. Archangel Michael reveals that identity confusion often comes right before identity clarity. When old labels fall away, there is a brief moment of uncertainty. You may ask yourself, if I am not who I used to be, then who am I now? Jesus answers gently, you are becoming who you were before survival rewrote your behavior. You are not lazy for resting. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not disloyal for outgrowing roles that drained you. These realizations are not rebellion. They are restoration. Heaven never intended you to live in constant emotional labor. This is also why your inner dialogue is changing. You may notice that harsh self-criticism no longer feels justified. The voice that once pushed you through exhaustion now feels out of place. In its place, a quieter, steadier confidence is forming. This is not pride. This is self-respect rooted in divine truth. Jesus reminds you that humility is not self-erasure. Humility is alignment with truth. And the truth is, you are allowed to take up space without apology. You are allowed to receive without overgiving. You are allowed to be seen without performing. Archangel Michael stands watch as this identity strengthens, because identity clarity closes spiritual doors that confusion once left open. When you know who you are, manipulation loses power. When you trust your discernment, deception fades. When you accept your worth, desperation disappears. You may still feel moments of doubt. Old thoughts do not vanish overnight. But now, when doubt arises, it does not dominate. You observe it instead of obeying it. You pause instead of panicking. This is growth. Heaven also wants you to understand that your voice matters in this season. Not in loud arguments, but in honest expression. Speak when something does not sit right. Speak when clarity rhymes. Silence is no longer your default defense. Wisdom is. As you step into this identity shift, remember to stay connected. When you like this message, when you share it, when you comment with what resonates, you reinforce this alignment not just for yourself, but for others walking the same path. Subscribing is not about routine. It is about remaining in a space where truth continues to reach you before confusion can settle again. Archangel Michael says agreement strengthens protection. Jesus says community strengthens endurance. If this message has been grounding you, let it move through you into action. Your engagement carries more spiritual weight than you realize. And hold on, because what unfolds next connects this new identity with purpose. This is where things begin to make sense in ways they never did before. You will want to stay present for this, because clarity is about to deepen, and the next revelation brings direction, not just understanding. My cherished one, as identity settles into clarity, purpose begins to rise naturally, without force or striving. Archangel Michael reveals that purpose is not something you chase. It is something that reveals itself once you are aligned enough to carry it without distortion. Jesus speaks calmly here, because this is the moment many misunderstand. They expect lightning, instructions shouted from heaven, or grammatic assignments. But divine purpose often unfolds as recognition rather than announcement. You are beginning to see why certain experiences shaped you the way they did. Pain that once felt meaningless now carries insight. Delays that once frustrated you now show wisdom. Even mistakes you regretted are being reframed, not as failures, but as teachers. Heaven wastes nothing. What you survived is becoming what you steward. Purpose does not arrive as pressure. When pressure shows up, it is usually performance trying to replace authenticity. True purpose feels steady. It feels grounded. It feels like something you can return to even when life becomes noisy. Archangel Michael says this steadiness is a sign that you are no longer building your life on approval, but on alignment. Jesus reminds you that purpose is not always public. Some assignments are quiet but powerful. Some callings change atmospheres rather than stages. You have been conditioned to believe that significance must be visible, but heaven measures impact differently. Obedience in private often carries more weight than recognition in public. You may notice a growing desire to be intentional with your time. Not busy, intentional. Certain distractions no longer satisfy. Certain conversations feel empty. This is not boredom, it is refinement. Your spirit is no longer entertained by what once kept you occupied. Space is being made for what actually feeds you. Archangel Michael reveals that your discernment is sharpening because your inner noise has quieted. You are no longer reacting from wounds. You are responding from wisdom. This changes everything. Decisions become simpler, even when they are not easy. You stop asking what will keep everyone happy, and start asking what aligns with truth. Jesus adds that purpose is closely tied to peace. When something repeatedly robs you of peace, it is not your assignment, no matter how familiar it feels. When something challenges you but brings clarity and quiet confidence, it is worth exploring. Heaven guides through peace, not panic. You might feel a pull toward learning, creating, serving, or speaking in ways you once avoided. Not because you lacked ability, but because you lacked permission. That permission is forming now, not as arrogance but as assurance. You are no longer waiting for external validation to begin honoring internal conviction. This is also why comparison is losing its grip. When purpose becomes personal, comparison becomes irrelevant. You stop measuring your life against timelines that were never meant for you. You understand that different assignments unfold at different speeds. Heaven is not in a hurry, but it is precise. Archangel Michael shows that protection increases around purpose because clarity attracts resistance. Not dramatic opposition, but subtle distractions meant to pull you back into old comfort zones. Stay attentive, not fearful attentive. When something feels like a detour rather than rest, pause and ask why. Jesus encourages you to remain teachable. Purpose does not mean arrival. It means direction. There will be seasons of learning, adjusting, and refining. Do not interpret refinement as failure. Refinement is evidence of investment. You may also notice a growing compassion within you. Not the kind that overextends, but the kind that understands. You listen differently now. You respond without absorbing. You care without collapsing. This balance is rare, and it is valuable. It allows you to serve without losing yourself. Purpose does not require you to abandon joy. In fact, joy often confirms alignment. When you feel joy rising quietly while doing something meaningful, take note. Heaven often whispers confirmation through contentment rather than excitement. As this clarity deepens, resist the urge to rush into action. Let purpose mature. Let understanding settle. Seeds grow best when not constantly disturbed. Trust that movement will come at the right pace. You are not late. You are not unprepared. You are positioned. What unfolds next brings confirmation, not from voices around you, but from patterns aligning in ways you cannot ignore. This is where heaven begins to affirm what your spirit already knows, and why the journey ahead feels both grounded and significant at the same time. My beloved child, now comes the moment of confirmation, because heaven never asks you to walk forward without reassurance. Archangel Michael says when purpose begins to settle, God releases signs, not to convince you, but to strengthen you. Jesus speaks with warmth here, because he knows how long you doubted yourself, how often you questioned whether what you felt was real or imagined. This phase answers those doubts gently but unmistakably. You may start noticing patterns aligning around you. Conversations that arrive at the right time. Words spoken by others that echo what you have been sensing internally. Doors that once felt sealed now opening with less resistance than you expected. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. Heaven is saying, yes, you are seeing correctly now. What makes this season different from before is not just what happens around you, but how you respond within. Instead of anxiety, there is calm curiosity. Instead of rushing, there is grounded confidence. Instead of overthinking, there is trust. Archangel Michael reveals that this is because fear no longer dominates your discernment. You are not being driven by urgency now. You are being guided by clarity. Jesus explains that confirmation often comes after surrender, not before. Once you released the need to control outcomes, alignment was able to reveal itself. This is why things feel smoother even when challenges appear. Resistance no longer throws you off course. You adapt without losing peace. You may also notice that validation from others matters less. Not because you no longer care, but because you are no longer dependent on it. When confirmation comes from heaven, human approval becomes secondary. This frees you to move honestly, without performing or proving. Archangel Michael shows that protection increases again here, because confirmation strengthens commitment. Once you know, you cannot unknow. Once clarity arrives, retreat becomes uncomfortable. Heaven guards this stage carefully, ensuring that doubt does not reclaim territory it once occupied. There may still be moments when old thoughts try to resurface. That does not mean confirmation has failed. It means your mind is adjusting to a new normal. When those thoughts arise, do not fight them aggressively. Acknowledge them, then return to what you know. Peace will guide you back. Jesus wants you to understand that confirmation is not always dramatic. Sometimes it feels like deep relief. Sometimes it feels like quiet excitement. Sometimes it feels like a settled yes inside your chest. Learn to recognize these signals. They are how heaven communicates consistency. This is also the phase where gratitude deepens. Not forced gratitude, but natural appreciation. You begin to notice how far you have come, how much lighter you feel, how different your reactions are compared to before. These reflections are not pride, they are testimony. Archangel Michael reminds you that testimony strengthens others. When you speak honestly about your journey, without exaggeration or shame, you become a mirror for someone else who is still doubting. Your clarity becomes their courage. As confirmation continues, remain grounded. Do not rush to announce everything you sense. Some things are meant to be nurtured quietly before being shared publicly. Jesus often withdrew before major movement. Silence can be strategic. And now, as this part seals what has been unfolding, receive this activation with awareness. Type "I walk in confirmation" in the comments if this message resonates deeply with you. Blessing code 1818 is now activated. The Lord says, "As I have confirmed you, now confirm my work on the earth." When you support this mission, you are helping light reach those still waiting for clarity. You are sowing into soil where truth is spoken without compromise and hope is released without fear. I feel led to speak plainly. This is not a donation. It is alignment in action. What you release becomes seed, and seed always returns with increase. Heaven watches obedience that moves immediately, not later. Support through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal. The link has been placed in the description for you. Act now, because when God confirms you, He also invites you to participate in what He is building next. My dear one, after confirmation comes consolidation, the phase where heaven helps you stabilize what hath been revealed so it does not fade under pressure. Archangel Michael explains that many people receive clarity but lose it because they do not anchor it into daily life. Jesus speaks with care here because this stage is about endurance, not excitement. It is about learning how to live from alignment consistently, not occasionally. You may notice that life does not suddenly become perfect. Challenges still arise. Responsibilities still exist. Emotions still fluctuate. But something fundamental has changed. You are no longer shaken at the core. Situations may disturb your day, but they no longer destabilize your identity. This is the evidence that consolidation is happening. Archangel Michael shows that stability is built through repetition. Not repetitive struggle, but repetitive truth. Each time you choose peace over panic, you strengthen alignment. Each time you pause instead of reacting, you reinforce clarity. Each time you honor your limits, you protect what heaven has restored. These choices may seem small, but they accumulate powerfully. Jesus reminds you that faithfulness is often quiet. It looks like showing up consistently, speaking honestly even when it feels vulnerable, resting when your body asks for it, walking away from conversations that pull you back into old patterns. This kind of obedience does not draw attention, but it draws strength. There may be moments when you are tempted to return to familiar chaos simply because it feels known. This does not mean alignment has failed. It means the mind sometimes confuses familiarity with safety. When this happens, gently remind yourself why change was necessary. Recall the peace you have now compared to the exhaustion you carried before. Memory can be a tool for wisdom when used with honesty. Archangel Michael emphasizes that consolidation also involves discipline, not punishment, but structure. Structure protects growth. You may feel guided to create routines that support your peace. Simple things like regular quiet time, intentional rest, or boundaries around your energy. These are not restrictions, they are reinforcements. Jesus adds that discipline becomes joyful when it aligns with purpose. When you understand why something matters, consistency no longer feels forced. It feels natural. This is why alignment shifts motivation. You are no longer doing things to earn worth. You are doing them to maintain health, spiritual, emotional, and mental. As consolidation continues, you may realize that some temptations no longer have the same pull. Old distractions feel empty. Old escapes feel unnecessary. This is not because you are stronger by yourself, but because clarity has reduced inner conflict. When you know where you are going, detours lose appeal. There is also a deepening trust happening now. Not blind trust, but tested trust. You begin to trust your discernment because it has proven reliable. You trust divine guidance because it has led you out of confusion. This trust creates inner calm even when answers are not immediate. Archangel Michael reveals that this stage is heavily guarded because it determines longevity. Many people burn out spiritually because they try to live from intensity rather than stability. Heaven is teaching you a different rhythm, one that sustains growth rather than consuming it. Jesus speaks reassurance here. You are not required to maintain constant emotional highs. Faithfulness is not measured by feelings. It is measured by alignment. Some days will feel ordinary. Some days will feel heavy. None of that negates what has been established. Roots grow underground before anything visible appears above. You may also find yourself becoming more selective with information you consume. Chaos no longer entertains you. Fear-based narratives feel intrusive. This discernment is part of consolidation. You are learning to guard your mind because your peace has proven valuable. Archangel Michael confirms that guarding peace is not avoidance. It is stewardship. When you protect what has been given, it multiplies. When you neglect it, it weakens. This is why heaven emphasizes consistency now more than revelation. Jesus invites you to remain patient with yourself. Growth is not linear. Some days you will feel strong, other days reflective. Neither defines failure. What matters is direction, not speed. Alignment is maintained through humility and awareness. As this phase continues, you may notice fewer dramatic signs and more quiet assurance. This does not mean heaven is distant. It means communication has matured. You no longer need constant reassurance because trust has taken root. And understand this clearly, consolidation prepares you for expansion. Stability comes before increase. Roots deepen before branches spread. Heaven does nothing out of order. What unfolds next brings expansion into focus. How this alignment begins to influence not just your inner world, but your outward impact in ways that feel natural, not forced. My beloved one, now expansion begins to stir, not as pressure to do more, but as grace to influence wider than before. Archangel Michael reveals that expansion is the natural outcome of stability. When your inner world is aligned, your outer world starts responding. Jesus speaks with calm authority here, because this is where many misunderstand God's movement. They assume expansion means busyness, visibility, or sudden responsibility. But true expansion begins subtly, almost quietly, through increased impact rather than increased noise. You may notice that people start responding to you differently. Your words carry more weight. Your presence feels steadier. Others may open up to you without you trying to counsel or fix them. This is not because you are trying harder, but because alignment carries authority without effort. Peace is persuasive. Clarity is attractive. When confusion leaves you, it also stops flowing from you. Archangel Michael explains that expansion does not always look like addition. Sometimes it looks like influence deepening where you already are. A single conversation shifts more than 10 used to. A simple decision produces lasting change. You are learning that effectiveness is not about quantity, but precision. Jesus adds that this is why he refined you privately first. Public impact without private alignment leads to exhaustion and compromise. But private alignment produces public fruit naturally. You are now walking in a rhythm where fruit grows, without striving. You may also sense a greater responsibility toward truth. Not in a heavy way, but in an honest way. You feel less comfortable staying silent when something matters. At the same time, you are more selective about when to speak. This balance is wisdom. Heaven is teaching you timing, not just truth. If that you know so des consistency, not through temptation alone, but through opportunity. Doors may open that look good but feel off. Invitations may come that flatter your ego but drain your peace. This is where discernment protects you. Yes, because you can does not mean you should. Just because something is available does not mean it is a sign. Archangel Michael stands watch here, because expansion without discernment leads to overextension. You are being reminded that alignment matters more than opportunity. Jesus never healed everyone in every town. He followed assignment, not demand. Learn from that example. You may feel moments of excitement mixed with caution. That is healthy. Excitement confirms possibility. Caution preserves clarity. You not suppressed either. Let them work together. Expansion guided by peace lasts longer than expansion driven by urgency. There is also an increase in spiritual sensitivity now. You pick up on atmospheres more easily. You sense when something is misaligned without needing evidence. This does not mean you become suspicious. It means you become aware. Awareness allows choice. Choice preserves peace. Jesus reassures you that you are not meant to carry every burden you notice. Sensitivity does not equal responsibility. Pray, release, and move on when something is not yours to fix. Expansion does not require savior behavior, only obedience. As your impact widens, heaven invites you to stay connected. When you like this message, when you share it with someone who needs clarity, when you leave a comment expressing what resonated, you are participating in expansion, not just witnessing it. Subscribing keeps you within a flow where alignment is reinforced instead of diluted. These actions may seem simple, but they create consistency, and consistency protects growth. Archangel Michael says agreement multiplies authority. Jesus says unity multiplies endurance. And pause here for a moment, because what comes next will deepen this understanding even further. Hold on. This next revelation connects expansion with responsibility in a way that will shift how you move forward. Expansion also brings visibility, even if subtle. People may watch you more closely than before. Not because you announce change, but because they sense it. This is where integrity matters deeply. Not perfection, integrity. Living what you believe. Aligning actions with values. Choosing honesty even when no one is watching. Jesus speaks firmly here. You not fear being seen. You were prepared for this. Visibility without alignment is dangerous, but visibility with alignment is powerful. You are not exposed. You are established. Archangel Michael reveals that expansion will also highlight what still needs refinement. Not to discourage you, but to strengthen you further. Growth always reveals next steps. Do not interpret this as failure. It is simply progression. You may feel called to step back at times to recalibrate. That is not retreat. That is wisdom. Expansion is not linear. It moves in waves. Advance, pause, integrate, then advance again. Allow this rhythm without guilt. Jesus reminds you that he often withdrew to pray even when crowds followed him. Solitude does not negate impact. It sustains it. Guard your inner space fiercely as your outer influence grows. As this stage unfolds, remain anchored in what brought you here. Honesty, humility, and obedience. Expansion magnifies whatever foundation it rests on. Because your foundation has been strengthened, Expansion will not break you. It will bless you. What unfolds next reveals how this expansion connects to legacy, and why what you are building now reaches further than you imagine. My beloved soul, as expansion settles into your life, heaven now turns your gaze toward legacy, because alignment is never meant to stop with you. Archangel Michael reveals that legacy is not about what you leave behind someday, but about what you release into the present that continues moving even when you are silent. Jesus speaks with deep intention here, because this stage requires maturity of heart, not ambition of ego. You are beginning to understand that your life carries weight beyond immediate results. Choices you make now ripple forward. Words you speak linger longer. The way you respond in pressure teaches more than the advice you give in peace. This realization is not meant to burden you. It is meant to steady you. When life is lived with awareness, it gains depth. Legacy does not demand perfection. It demands consistency. Heaven is not asking you to become flawless, but to remain faithful to what hath been entrusted to you. Archangel Michael says many people think legacy is built through dramatic achievements, but most legacy is formed through repeated integrity in ordinary moments. How you handle conflict, how you speak when frustrated, how you remain honest when it costs you comfort. Jesus reminds you that he changed the world not only through miracles, but through daily obedience, through compassion when it was inconvenient, through truth when it was uncomfortable, through restraint when power was available. This is the model being formed within you now. You may notice a shift in what motivates you. Approval matters less. Recognition feels hollow. What begins to matter more is alignment with conscience and peace with God. This is not detachment from life. It is depth within it. You are learning to live from conviction rather than reaction. Archangel Michael reveals that legacy thinking also refines decision-making. You start asking different questions. Not just will this work, but will this last? Not just does this benefit me, but does this build something healthy? These questions slow you down, but they also protect you from regret. There may be moments when you feel the weight of responsibility more strongly. Do not confuse this with pressure. Responsibility rooted in love does not crush. It clarifies. It helps you prioritize. It helps you say no to what distracts and yes to what aligns. Heaven trusts you with this awareness because you are ready to steward it. Jesus speaks reassurance here. You are not required to carry everyone or fix everything. Legacy is not about control. It is about example. When you live aligned, others learn what alignment looks like. When you choose peace, others see permission to do the same. When you walk away from chaos, you demonstrate wisdom without a lecture. This is also where forgiveness deepens. Not forced forgiveness, but freeing forgiveness. You begin to understand that holding on to resentment does not protect your legacy. It poisons it. Letting go does not excuse harm. It releases you from carrying it forward. Archangel Michael guards this process, ensuring that release does not reopen wounds but closes them with clarity. You may find yourself reflecting more often, looking back not with shame but with understanding, seeing how each season shaped you, recognizing patterns that have ended and blessings that arrived quietly. Reflection is not dwelling, it is integrating. It allows wisdom to form. Jesus highlights something important here. Legacy is built when truth and love remain together. Truth without love hardens people. Love without truth confuses them. Balance creates transformation. This balance is being formed within you now, and it will guide your interactions moving forward. There is also a humbling awareness that you are still learning. Legacy does not mean arrival. It means direction. You will continue to grow, adjust, and refine. Heaven honors teachability more than confidence. Stay open. Stay curious. Stay grounded. Archangel Michael shows that protection around you now extends to what you influence. Your words carry covering. Your presence brings calm. This is not mystical exaggeration. It is the natural effect of alignment. Peace spreads when it is carried authentically. You may not always see the impact immediately. Some seeds grow slowly. Some changes unfold quietly. Do not measure legacy by immediate feedback. Trust that obedience plants seeds in soil you may never revisit. Heaven keeps record even when you do not see results. Jesus speaks gently here. Your life does not need to be loud to be lasting. Faithfulness echoes further than noise. Integrity speaks longer than applause. You are building something steady, something rooted, something that will not collapse under pressure. As this understanding settles, remain present. Do not rush ahead mentally. Stay where your feet are. Legacy is built in the now, not the someday. Each aligned choice strengthens what you are becoming. What unfolds next brings closure and commissioning, not as an ending, but as a sealing. This final movement gathers everything that has been revealed and anchors it with authority, clarity, and blessing. My beloved child, this is the sealing moment where everything that has been revealed, corrected, aligned, confirmed, and expanded is now anchored into your spirit with authority. Archangel Michael stands not in warning now, but in witness. Jesus stands not in urgency now, but in blessing. What began as an emergency has become a commissioning. What started as confrontation has matured into clarity. This is not an ending. This is ascending. Heaven says you are no longer the same person who first encountered this message. Awareness has replaced avoidance. Alignment has replaced confusion. Peace has replaced inner resistance. You may not feel dramatically different on the surface, but deep within, something has settled permanently. This is the mark of true transformation. It does not shout. It stabilizes. Archangel Michael declares that the protection around you is no longer reactive, but proactive. Before, heaven was guarding you from harm while you were learning. Now, heaven is guarding what flows through you. Your discernment, your peace, your purpose, and your influence are being preserved. This is why things that once easily disturbed you no longer have the same access. Gates have been reinforced. Jesus speaks with tenderness and authority. He says you have moved from being constantly alerted to being inwardly guided. You no longer need repeated alarms because your spirit has learned to listen. This is maturity. This is trust restored. This is relationship deepened. There will still be challenges ahead, but they will not carry the same confusion. You will recognize when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to hold on and when to release. These decisions will not come from fear, but from peace. Peace will now be your compass. Heaven wants you to understand that obedience has shifted your trajectory. Some outcomes you feared will not happen. Some cycles you expected to repeat will not return. Some delays that frustrated you were quietly rerouted into protection. You were spared more than you realize, not because you were perfect, but because you were willing to respond. Archangel Michael shows that this alignment also affects timing. What once felt slow will begin to feel synchronized. Not rushed, not stagnant, but timely. You will be surprised how things align when resistance is removed. Doors open without force. Answers arrive without panic. Support appears without manipulation. Jesus reminds you that humility keeps alignment intact. Stay teachable. Stay honest. Stay grounded. You do not need to prove what heaven has already confirmed. You do not need to announce what God is quietly establishing. Walk it out. Let fruit speak. There is also a charge given now, not heavy but sacred. Carry peace into rooms that lack it. Carry clarity where confusion dominates. Carry compassion without self-betrayal. This is how light moves, through people who are aligned enough to hold it without distortion. You may not always feel strong, but you will feel steady. You may not always feel certain, but you will feel guided. You may not always feel ready, but you will be equipped. Heaven does not send the unprepared. It prepares those it sends. As this commissioning seals, receive this final activation with reverence and confidence. Type "I walk in divine authority" in the comments if you receive this message fully. Blessing code 3033 is now released over your life. The Lord says, "What I have sealed in you must now be sustained through obedience." When you support this work, you are not giving to a channel. You are fueling a river that carries truth to those still in darkness, still delaying, still waiting for alignment. I am speaking to you personally now. This is your moment to act as a steward of what you have received. Your giving becomes seed, and seed released in obedience always multiplies in protection, clarity, and provision. Even where Zion's taken at the moment of conviction. Do not delay what God is asking you to do now. Support through super thanks, membership, or PayPal. The link is waiting in the description. Move with authority, because those who sustain the work of God will never lack the reward of obedience.